Hey, all my IFG friends, this is Steve. I want to say, if you like movies like I do, we've started a new podcast called Happy Hour Flicks. You can find it anywhere podcasts are found. It's all about nostalgic movies that we love, and we bring on special guests each episode, and we also have specialty cocktails made for each one, too. So it really is an hour of a good time talking about movies that we love, like Gremlins, Seven, Free Willy. We talk about The Last Starfighter also. I mean, we kind of run the gamut across all the decades and really have a great time. So wanted to invite you to come over and join us. That's Happy Hour Flicks, anywhere podcasts are found. And welcome back to the Independent Filmmakers Guide. Stephen Pierce here again with Mr. James Allerdyce.
What's up?
And today we are looking at what we're calling a life-affirming family dramedy, like sort of coming-of-age film. It's like a rom-com. So I'm calling it kind of that romantic comedy with a little bit of substance and character called Sam and Kate, directed and written by Darren Le Gallo. And the cast, James, the cast is really interesting in this one.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman playing an older man with his real-life son. Dustin Hoffman's son,
Jake Hoffman,
plays his son in the movie.
Correct.
And then Sissy Spacek and her real-life daughter, playing her daughter in the movie.
Yep,
so
Schuyler Fisk.
We're already interested.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know that's. I've never heard of that actually happening in especially not in that too sort of handed way. It's a very fun movie. Darren did a great job, I think, making something that's really watchable and enjoyable. Feels very appropriate for the holidays, like Thanksgiving. This is a very Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah, perfect holiday movie. And we talked to Darren about, he's a first-time filmmaker here. He was the writer-director. His first movie, he got in there. He made this thing pre through post. I mean, he's been working on it for years, and he's writer, director, got down there, shot it, was involved in the post-production, so...
Get to hear about how it is, making a film with people of that caliber, Sissy and Dustin, obviously, and, the whole production elements.
Also shooting in Georgia. We know that's a huge place to film, especially these days, so got to hear a lot about working, with the community and the Film Commission and how that came about as well.
Let's talk to them.
This is the
Independent
Filmmakers Guide
from Framework Productions.
Framework
Productions.
Oh, welcome back, and we are here today with Darren Le Gallo talking about his movie Sam and Kate. It's a romantic comedy just come out. James here with me as well in the studio, and Darren, it's awesome to get to speak to you.
Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here, guys.
Yeah, man. Well, so, I mean, this is a very exciting movie. Whenever we get it, rarely an independent film do you have such great names right above the title. That's very exciting. Like Dustin Hoffman and his son, Jake Hoffman, they play a father-son duo in the film. And so is Sissy Spacek and Schuyler Fisk, and they play a mother-daughter duo in the film. Before I get out of hand here and totally dig into, want to talk about the cast in the film and everything, can you just... as if I'd never seen it before, what is Sam and Kate about?
Well, Sam and Kate is about... Sam is a young kind of aspiring artist who returns back to the small town he grew up in the middle of the country to take care of his dad, Bill, after his mom has passed a few years previously. And it's the dynamic of him kind of regressing back into his kind of teenage years as he's there trying to take care of Bill. And then on a random Christmas Eve encounter, they're equal. They're counterparts, Tina and Kate, having car troubles, and they have this chance meeting where they're able to help them, and they give them a ride home. And from that point, the four of them start to realize that there's some kind of they feel connected to the other. And through the course of that, they start to realize that it takes other people to truly see ourselves and to give ourselves a second chance in life. And a lot of people we fall in these ruts, just being kind of like, well, this is life and this is how it's going to go. And I feel like, especially the parents in the film get kind of into this rut, but we all do. And I think it takes other people to see us and make us aware that maybe we do have the potential to move beyond what we thought we could, and to break down walls that keep us isolated and separated. It's pretty layered, but that's kind of a quick nutshell of what the film is about.
Absolutely. And, Steve mentioned, this amazing cast that you have in here. Did you write for this cast? I mean, it's so specific with obviously Dustin Hoffman and his son and Sissy Spacek and her daughter, both playing son and daughter and mother, son and father and mother and daughter. Did you write for them?
Well, initially I did not write knowing that I was going to get the cast that I got. But once the four of them were on, I really like collaborating, and that was part of approaching them. I had this script that initially got them interested, but I was really interested in working on the characters together and their backstory. And this kind of happened when it first got Dustin. It was 2019, so it was pre-pandemic. And then once Jake and Sissy and Schuyler came on, it was when Sissy and Schuyler came on, we were in the full-on lockdown. So it gave us time to, I took advantage of that time of being kind of isolated to have conversations with the four of them about their characters and about, where they'd come from. And it was wonderful because we would talk about story and character, and then we were also candid about our own personal lives. And those would kind of interweave, and we would start to find different truths that made the cast feel even more grounded in the characters and such. So initially I did not write this for them, but once they were there, we started to workshop their characters and work the script. And so that's probably what you're feeling.
Yeah, when did you start writing it, and what was the process of getting, initially Dustin attached in 2019? Because it feels like, a lot of times with indie films, especially, it's like getting that first cast attachment is very difficult, and that's really where the film begins to really take shape and have a life.
Yeah, so 7 years ago was the first. I drafted the first script of this, the first draft. My wife was working in Montreal. And I had written another script that I was trying to get off the ground. And it was actually my wife's suggestion. She's like, I think you need to write the next day. And so I wrote, 7 years ago. And then through those years, we'd had table reads with different casts and such. And then at a certain point, the decision was kind of made to try and shoot for the moon with the cast and to go to Dustin. We were able to get the script to his agent, and she read it and really liked it for him. And then so then when he read it and responded, and we were getting the text, we were in New York. I think we were getting ready to step into a play, me and my girls, and I got a text that Dustin was interested. And so I immediately called the agent. I was like, listen, I'm a first-time director. I'm sure he'll have questions. I want to know any concerns. I want to lay those to rest. So I'd love to sit down and meet with him. And I was fortunate enough that he agreed, and we had the first lunch meeting. And I remember him sitting down and going, I have a lot of questions. And I was like, and I was like, hopefully I'll have all the answers you need. And, then we had a 2-hour conversation, much like I was saying that I'd had once the other cast came on. We just kind of hit it off, and we started talking about who Bill was, and then, his history and the story. And then Dustin, would talk to me about his life and, what, some of the stuff with his father and vice versa. And we just had a really good meeting. And from that, I think I had another meeting with him, and then we did a table read with Dustin. And the cast was different at that point. There was something electric about the table read, and everybody was excited after them. That was really exciting, because then he hung out. I had it at my home, and he hung out for about an hour after, because there was something. We were like, oh, there's something here, And so post that, I had one more meeting with him, and I was like, I just remember meeting him for lunch, and him saying, I really want to help you with this thing. I was like, well, Dustin, you got to play Bill. That's how you can help me. That's how you can help me. Get the film made. And I think it was just having a couple of times of being pretty bold with him. But honestly, we kind of It was nice because from the first meeting we had a bit of a rapport and we really got on, and he knew that I really knew the story. I think that was part of it. Writing it, I was really confident about what story I wanted to tell, and Dustin picked up on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you hit the COVID. I mean, everyone hit the big COVID wall of production coming up. So, I mean, did that delay you guys? Were you planning to film before that, or did it end up being kind of an advantage? Because it sounds like Go ahead.
No, yeah. I actually, it's interesting because in the middle of all that, I was super stressed because I had Dustin, I had this other cast. It would have been a completely different film. They wanted, we were at the time we were with a different financier, and we were going to shoot in Canada, and I was like, wait, this is meant to be in the middle of the country. So there's a lot of things going on, and then when I think I had lost all of my cast before the pandemic hit, except for Dustin. And then I remember it was one of the producers, Orion Williams, had suggested Jake to play Sam, and so we met Jake, and the minute we sat down and started talking, I was kind of floored because I wrote this. It's like I wrote it for him, and he just happened to be Dustin's son,
Yeah.
Which I'd asked Dustin before we went. I was like, "How would you feel about working with your son in this?" And he really liked the idea. So then the pandemic hit. It halted everything. We ended up leaving the financing company that we were with, and I knew that Dustin and Jake were committed. And at the time, we were looking for Tina and Kate, who were going to play those, and we had discussions about, and I always knew that I wanted to work with Sissy. She's from Texas. I just felt she would be so right for the role. And I had friends that were friendly with her and her daughter, and we were able to get them the script. And,
that's amazing.
yeah, so we took advantage of the pandemic.
So did that influence? You were originally going to film in Canada, and you ended up filming in Georgia. Is that correct? Was that influenced by the pandemic, or how did that come about?
Yeah, I think I knew before the pandemic hit. I wasn't really, and I love Canada. I wrote both of my scripts. The first two scripts I wrote were in Canada. There's something I love Vancouver. I love Montreal. I love Canada. I haven't been all over. But yeah, it just I was a little apprehensive because I knew the setting. I actually wanted to, somewhere in the middle of the Bible Belt is where it was meant to be.
Right.
And so not being in Toronto, I'd never been to Toronto. I was like, well, I know they film a lot of stuff there, but
it would feel very city. It'd be just kind of a different, different kind of vibe, I think.
Yeah.
And
it would have been a different vibe. It would have been a different movie.
You feel the town so much. It's really a character in this movie. It's such a personal movie and intimate movie in so many ways, and the town is kind of part of that. I actually wanted to ask about your experience filming in that town. Was this one of these cases where the town kind of opened up and embraced the film, or there's so many.
There are
scenes
lots of different locations
all over the town. How did it go working in Georgia and working in that town?
Yeah, well, we had Ben Shields-Catlin, one of the producers, had mentioned through acquaintance, he had mentioned this town, and we went down and we did a scout, thinking this was probably 2021. We went and did a scout, and the minute I got to the town, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, it was almost kind of like when I met Jake. It was the same feeling. I was like, this is very serendipitous. This feels right. And the town, they've got the Thomasville Pictures, a small company there, and they're promoting independent films, and it was nice. They showed us around, and we were there for a few days, and then I remember leaving, and there was a period of time where we didn't know if we're going to have that location. I was like, oh man, we're so ahead of the game. I hope we get to go back there and shoot there, because the town felt right.
Yeah, in independent films too, especially like even more. Not that it doesn't matter in L things, but especially if the set and the location is chosen correctly, that's almost 50% of the battle for like art and like production design and all of that, because it actually exists.
Yeah,
was
fully.
everything
and
on
also
location?
What was great about it, I will say about everything. Yeah, everything was practical. Everything was on location, and I gotta say, like, it was one of the things that was great about shooting that town is everything was close. We don't have a whole lot of money. The company moves and all this other stuff. It adds up. And so it was great. Everything was really, I can't give you an approximate, but I would say everything was within like 3 miles.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Everything was super close. The production office, yeah, it was amazing. I had a scooter. I would scoot to work every day.
Yeah,
And,
but that was mostly for fun.
One of our locations was literally totally for fun and to save money. So I was like, I don't need a rental car. I could scare everywhere. And there was also a park that one of the locations we shot at was like right across from the production office. It was great. In the last, like, there's a scene where Andy Kate are walking down a long sidewalk, and that was right outside the production office. Everything was really close. So that was a gift. Yeah.
That's amazing. So what was your production schedule like? Knowing, I mean, especially working with larger names, it's something to be very intimidating to like get them, and especially, people of different, timings and needs on set, like being able to work around that kind of schedule. Like, how many days did you end up, filming?
Well, we ended up we before we went out there, we were going to have like 25 days or something like this. And initially, we were hoping to get around 30, and then it got whittled down to 23, I think. And I was like, okay. And then we get out there, first week of production. I was told I had 20 days to shoot the film, and I think at that moment I was like, okay, that's a little stressful, only because I've got, like you mentioned, Dustin and Sissy, and he's got like, I didn't work an 80-something-year-old man to the phone. That's not okay,
Yeah.
So I was concerned about I was concerned about that for sure. I think the saving grace is what we have been discussing, is that I had basically, almost 3 years with Dustin and at least a year and a half, almost 2 years with Sissy and Schuyler on working on the project with them. So that was invaluable. I knew early on, after having a few conversations, I was like, oh, I think I know. I remember leading a meeting with Dustin going, I think I know how I'm going to like direct him, which was a weird thing to even consider. Mm-hmm. I tried not to think about it too much, to be honest with you guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, that could be,
it could be pretty overwhelming. Yeah.
Right. I mean, and it could be turned very cerebral, where that's not. It's mostly intuitive and, strong communication, right?
Yeah, fully. And they were great like that. So I think having that time period before we actually got to Georgia was imperative, and it really helped us, even with this fast schedule. And tough, because you'd always love to get more coverage, but you only have so much time. But I will say, the cast did their work. They showed up to work, and it was we made our days because of the hard work.
So Frank DeMarco, he shot the film, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, I mean, there's something I wanted to talk a little bit about how you guys set up. He shoots a lot of kind of play adaptations, and I will say there's a very kind of a theatrical feeling with the performance. I think probably because of the style of performers that are in it. But was that a consideration? And how did you guys? Because you also began and still are an actor, correct? And I believe you do. Do you do theater stuff? I don't know why. My question here is: it feels sort of theatrical in a sense, if that makes sense? Was there any? Yeah. Why is that from your, or is that just unintentional? Do you think there's a reason for that?
Theatrical in the way that you feel like it's
like it has room, room to breathe. It really has a character emphasis. You know what I mean? A lot of times films can have the opposite.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay, I hear what you're saying now. I always approached it. I wanted it to be a character study for sure. There's always kind of coming of age, people going through major changes in their life, but typically they were all in high school, leaving high school, going to, what it's going to be like in the real world. I loved those movies, and I think in my mind, I was like, what would it feel like if we just aged everybody up? Because we're all, midlife. What does it look like when you're in midlife and you've already had those 15, 20 years, whatever it is, post high school, or how you've had a life? What would that look like? So it was a bit of that. And then the Frankie DeMarco, we'd interviewed a few different VPs, and this was during the lockdown as well. And so we had a Zoom with Frankie. I leaned towards Frankie. He had done a film, I think it's called All Is Lost. Forgive me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Robert Redford.
Yeah,
it was Robert Redford, who was a legend in his own right, and a bit older, and just him on the boat, that alone, I was like, I gotta meet this guy. I gotta meet this DP who shot this. But also, knowing how to work with somebody of that caliber was important to me, especially this being my first outing. I wanted to surround myself with people that had worked with these type of actors before, and also like there was a certain feel of how I wanted it to look. I mentioned those early kind of, and even June bug. I remember the first time I saw June bug, I was like, this is beautiful. So there's something about encapsulating those kind of feelings, and I felt like after talking with Frankie, I think he also complimented me. I sent him over. I storyboarded for years, and so I had some drawings. I think he'd seen them, and I think he compared me to some director in our first meeting. I was like, "Oh, you win."
I was going to ask about that.
I was really yes.
Yeah, because I believe.
Sorry, go ahead.
And forgive me here. You're an artist, visual artist, obviously beyond just a filmmaker. You do also illustrations and drawing. I mean, we'll talk more about your upcoming project later with John Patrick Shanley. But I was going to ask about your storyboarding process and how that worked for you, and how you and the team all kind of got behind storyboards, or did you let the actors kind of come on set and determine their own staging?
What? A great question. Early on, everyone had seen the drawings. I'd actually had done a mock kind of animatic when we were first trying to get investors of Bill in the market, the opening of the film. And it was all hand drawn, but it was him moving through. It was basically like an animatic of that opening sequence. The way I write, I have to see it. I'm so visual. I've always drawn. I've always been an artist. Again, painting, drawing, sculpting. So writing, I visually had to see it, and that I had storyboarded in the past. I think it only helped, even on set or on the set, I'd have an idea or something more, and be like, no, wait, hang on, what are we doing? Or if I was with Frankie, the DP, I would turn the sides over and I'd do a little frame. I'd be like, I'm thinking about this, and I would draw the shot out. And then, in the production office, because I'd been with this for so many years, I had drawn out, even not knowing the locations per se, at that point, in my mind, I had drawn out what I thought potential shots and how sequences could play out. And that was good for Frankie to see that visually. And then we could parlay off of that and be like, what if we came over here instead of right there where you're always open? I love collaborating.
Yeah, great. I think
I don't think there's any bad ideas. I think
I think that's probably what I mean by like it feeling sort of, I don't know, theatrical. It feels very organic. Like it wasn't a lot of like director's hand in like.
No, it doesn't feel overcut. It feels like you're watching the moment play out. And we come from the theater as well, so we're used to, and now we're in film production. So it's like we see both sides, and there's something great and beautiful, obviously, to overcutting things, but there's something really nice and intimate about seeing these scenes play out and breathe like you do in this movie.
Thanks for saying that. Yeah, I've always. Yeah, go ahead.
Did that come through in some of the production style and technique that, like you're talking about with your shot listing, the fireworks scene in particular? There's a beautiful scene that where they're watching fireworks. Did that happen? How did you film that? Was that actual practical, or how did that come about?
Oh man, I wish. I think we fought to try to get the town or what have you to actually do a fireworks.
Yeah, I was watching. It looked so good. I was like,
in a small town like this, you never know. Maybe.
Yeah, guys over at Buffalo, they did a really good job with it. They really did. And that location was great. I just remember the first day we found that location with the bench, and we obviously put the bench in there. And a little sidebar of that, I do remember the last day we were shooting was that scene, the New Year's Eve scene between Sam and Kate, where they're sitting out there and watching the fireworks that would be put in later. But I told them, I was like, it's going to be up there, and there's going to be a reflection, this and that. But what was fun about that is we also shot, Jake on the bridge. He's over on the bridge, kind of looking into the water, and there's that whole little montage that comes later in the film. But I remember we had set the camera up. It was our last shot was that whole sequence with them on the bench. And we set the camera up and it was still daylight. And I looked at Frank and I said, time lapse. Let's just grab this, time lapse that. Mm-hmm. And that was when we were there. I was like, oh, wait, shoot that. Let it roll. And so we time elapsed the bench, which we ended up using in the film. And I was just like, that kind of stuff, that gets me so excited in the moment, like looking and going, oh, wait, let's grab, or whether, there's a moment with Jake and, Sammy's out there on his break and a worm. He picked up the worm and the worm was clown and everybody was waiting for it. I was like, no, shoot that right now. Shoot him with the worm. It's gold. It's gold,
you got 20 days, right? I mean, you got to get everything.
That. Yeah. Anything that happens organically.
That's right. Yeah,
so that was the last scene you guys shot. I mean, that's sort of without giving things away too much about the film, that's an act 2 where things are kind of, going in a good direction for the characters. So that's what a fun scene to get to go out on production. You know what I mean? Like you get to go out on like the high point rather than having to go out on the contentious ones.
Yeah. That was really great. That was really great. And it was wonderful. And to your point, I love so that Jake or the actors would come to me and even that scene, Schuyler and Jake had an idea. He's like, hey, we come up with just a couple, I wasn't so precious about my words. So as long as we were still on the track, heading in the direction I needed to head, I was fine. I wanted to hear what, and in that particular one, Jake and Schuyler were like, hey, we just have a couple of different things we were saying here. We wanted to run it by you. She thought about it. And the lines about it being New Year's and the fresh notebook, and that's because she owns the thing. That was those guys. And they ran it. They ran it once, and I was like, I love it. And I think like most of what was scripted was about like New Year's and it being time for change and that kind of thing, a fresh start. And then they just kind of parlayed on that, and I love that kind of interaction and that kind of collaboration. I think you get more than you ever thought you might.
Staying on collaboration, and just my last nitty-gritty question about technique, because I think a lot of our listeners do like to hear about the production technique. How did you film the roller skating scene? There's a scene where everyone's roller skating, the camera's moving with the skaters. Were you out there on dollies, or did someone get on skates, or how did that come about?
They actually had like a little rig, a little like kind of rig on wheels.
Yeah.
And fortunately that roller rink was gigantic. It's the biggest roller rink I think I've ever been in. And it wasn't typically a ovular kind of, it was a big massive rectangle with no walls, no surrounding walls, which the first time when we scouted that, I got really excited. Yeah, I got excited because I was like, every roller rink you go to, you have those blockade walls around it. This one had none of it. So I was like, oh my gosh, it opened us up to, I was like, there's all kinds of possibilities of how we can shoot this because we don't have anything blocking, even if we go low. So that was really exciting about the location. But yeah, they had this kind of wheeled rig on the rink. You're okay. You can hear that. My wife is wrapping some putting bags in me. She's very nervous. She's making too much noise. I'm like, I think. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun. That day was a lot of fun. Actors had fun with that too. They got to put on skates. They're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Something everybody's favorite thing is a grip on wheels. Put a grip on a pair of ice skates or a pair of rollerblades and let them go around and move stuff.
Well, and you had a scooter on set too, so this is a theme now.
That's right, a little scooter. Yeah.
So jumping ahead into go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to jump ahead a little bit and so now once the film gets done, what did you guys do post-production? And where did you edit it and, finish it all up? And how long did that all take you all?
I edited it here in LA at a little editing house. And initially when we were done with the initial shooting, editor Dominic Lapierre, who's fantastic, and Ruben Navarro, two editors, very talented guys. He was like, okay, so you're going to come back, 3 days from now. I was like, oh, no. I'm leaving. I'm going out of town with my wife and my daughter. I'm going to give you, you get your editor's cut. I'm going to give you an extra week. And so that was it's almost kind of like when we were working. I love to see what, we have you set it up and you see what happens, and someone will do something, you're like, that's incredible. And it was very much that way with the editors. I wanted them to have like free rounds. Just take along the way when we were shooting, by the way, I would get like daily at the end of the day. And I remember the first time I got 3 or 4 scenes cut together that we'd shot from Dominic. And I remember looking at them and going, oh my God, like this guy, I hadn't even fully communicated with him, and he had already cut together the stuff how I'd seen it. So I knew I had something special with the editors as well. And my hope is if I get the opportunity, I want to work with those guys again. They're brilliant. So edited out. I came back. I was here for a couple of months. I want to say a couple of months, maybe. It was pretty fast, to be honest. We didn't have a whole lot of time. But I think giving the editor that extra week and a half or what it was to kind of lock in their cut was really good, because they made some kind of choices that got me excited.
That's
that
great.
I had not quite seen certain things. It was fun. I love that stuff.
Editing, is such a scary thing, especially on a feature. Whenever you're just getting into the scenes, because you never know, what you've created on set and the ideas you had, and if they're ever going to translate. So having an editor you can trust that has ideas and brings something to the table, man, that's a great get.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. And I had interviewed him before. I'd interviewed Dominic before. We decided to work, and I loved what he had done with Alma and Honey. And he worked on that. But he was super. Yeah, it was great. What a gift.
That's amazing. So you guys, coming up, we have a theatrical release coming up from the time we're filming this. This is just in a few days on November 11th, with a VOD scheduled to hit on November 18th. And that's through Vertical. So how did you guys get, paired up? How did you find your distribution, your festival plan? Like, how, once the film was done, what was the process of getting it to be here?
I will hand that over to, that is basically my two closest producers, Orion Williams and Ben Schildkow, and those two guys were fought for the film. Much like the editor, if this is the beginning of me getting to make a bunch of films, I hope I get to work with those guys on every one. They were incredible to work with. They helped with getting the film, submitted to the different festivals. Just tirelessly working and supporting. That was the one thing that was really, one of the several things that was so exciting about this is that everybody that came on, you weren't getting paid. You weren't getting a lot of money for this. There was a lot of, everybody had connected to it or had responded to the script. And so there was this, even as it was a familial with the cast, it felt that way with the crew. And I think once we got there and everybody knew that this was the cast that was coming, we all knew that it was something really special. And so the crew, worked long hours and tirelessly and because they believed in the project. And I think it shows.
Yeah, that's like the family that independent film, creates. This, you guys filmed it February 2022, and here we are in November, where you premiered Austin Film Festival, correct, in October, and then now hitting theaters a month later. That is quite a timeline to have laid out there. That's more like television.
Fast.
It's insanely fast. Yeah. Insanely fast. And to back up really quick too, you said something about editing. I will say I learned so much, and it was also a process where it was fun, but I think it was one of the most painful processes too, because I was faced with things that either shots that I didn't get, or other things that had happened that I felt we had this or that, and so that was painful to go in and be like, oh, I don't have all this or that, but there's only a few people, knowing this now, watching the film, you're like, what would he, what is he missing here? But it was just a growing process, but I felt like the editing part was probably the most painful.
Absolutely. I mean, that's such a it is the truth teller. You know what I mean? Where your ideas become real and you see how close you were or why they don't work or why, oh, this should have been a little longer, a little shorter, or why did we do it this way? Just it's a whole learning process. But I mean, I think you did a great job. I mean, being the first film, you've checked a lot of huge check marks off the list. That are really, really impressive.
Thanks for saying that.
Of course, man. Of course. So, I mean, on that note,
Thank you.
You had, like going back, what did you learn from doing this? This being your first one, assuming, I mean, I know you're working on other projects coming up, but assuming you're going to direct another one, you'd like to. What would you? Is there anything you'd approach differently?
That's a good question. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I think coverage. That's the thing. If you can, I think but it's also, I think, as planned out and as mapped out as we were, I think having having a good shot list and knowing what you're shooting that day is great, but then also being open to picking up stuff how we did. But I think if anything, approaching it, the next project, my hope is to have a few more days, a little bit more money.
Always the case.
Always the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what my producers told me to do. That's going to be always. You're always going to want that. I think probably more. To be honest, more coverage of stuff, and then I know I've actually said this. I'm like, ooh, the next film, I'm going to have a list, and even if we have like a second camera just for a week, depending on what the budget is. I don't know. They've got more than one camera. We only have one camera on this one. If I had a second camera, I'd have like a list of B-roll stuff. I actually love B-roll. I love little details, details of things that we get in B-roll. So I think the next outing, I would want to have like a good B-roll. So when I get into editing, I'm like, oh, it's just more. It's almost like more. You have more paint, more different colors to play with.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think having a second camera is enormous. Like a lot of people, especially in the film world, don't really like it. I'm a strong advocate for it. I really think if you have a really strong creative, I mean, they're almost kind of closer to a second unit director, like a B camera operator, because you're kind of saying, hey, here's what the scene is, here's what I'm really going for, but you're looking for them to bring you something surprising and something from a different, something different than what you've got planned. And man, that's really. It's pretty. It crushes when they can do it.
Oh my gosh, it's the best. I can't imagine. Like that stuff is really. I get excited about that stuff. I'm kind of a geek for the details, but especially if someone would surprise me with shots that you might not have or been on the list or thought about. But yeah, I think it's like off the top of my head, it's that, and it's like more coverage.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Play with.
Now, speaking in the future, what do you have coming up next?
I wrote, and I'm rewriting, which I'm very excited about. I wrote a psychological thriller. I love that genre. I love horror films. I used to love them even more when I was younger. But this one is kind of, I mean, if I'm saying that initially when I wrote Sam and Kate, it was based off of like a John Hughes kind of Cameron Crowe thing. This next project, which is tentatively entitled The Pool, would be, I think, probably the biggest influence is like The Shining, that kind of where a parental figure is meant to be, it's scary when parents go crazy.
Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, that's kind of, there's that, and I've got a few others. There's like a list. I have like 3 or 4 projects that I'm looking at that I want to do. But I think psychological thriller will be the next one.
That's super exciting. So, where should people come that want to see your next project? Where should we come follow you and find out about what you got going on next?
Yeah, or more about this one.
Yeah, or more about this one. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, I have an Instagram page, which I guess I post every once in a while too about if there's new scenes that come out or things, excuse me, reviews or trailers or whatnot. I'll definitely, it's just Darren Le Gallo on Instagram, and I tend to be pretty active on that.
Right. What's the handle there?
With this stuff, and yeah, it's just my full name, Darren Le Gallo, DarrenLeGarro, and it's Instagram, and I post a lot of art there on there as well, and sometimes some family stuff, but yeah, when it comes to these projects and upcoming things, I'll definitely be posting about that stuff.
Okay, great.
Get it out there.
We'll look for it. Well, the first thing that everyone can look for is this movie, Sam and Kate. It's a perfect holiday film. It's going to be available all over on November 18th on video on demand.
But go to the theater if you can see it.
Yeah,
November 11th.
true.
I mean, films in theaters. That's where you're supposed to watch them.
Oh, yeah.
Go check it out. No,
totally. It's the best. Yeah, thanks, guys.
No,
it's great
Darren,
in the theater. So
dude,
much fun in the theater.
It's great getting to talk to you, Darren. Thank you so much for taking
Absolutely.
the time.
Thanks for having me, guys. It was lovely talking to you.
Filmmaking is a collaborative experience, and so is this podcast. Please take a second to subscribe so you know about future episodes, and leave a review. It really does help us. For more info about today's guest, please visit independentfilmmakersguide.com, where you can check out all our episodes that run the gamut of filmmaking topics.
Hey friends, we just wanted to take a quick moment to talk about two personal things. First, we wanted to thank you, our listening community, and our wonderful guests, learning so much together along the way and continuing to learn, sharing our stories, making a lot of new friends, and collaborating, which is exactly what this is all about. Which also brings me to my second point. In great part to many of these new relationships, we wanted to let you know that we've taken a lot of this advice ourselves and made our own narrative feature film, Herd. H-E-R-D, Herd, which is premiering this October on Friday the 13th in select theaters as well as on VOD. Personally, I think it's the perfect kind of scary movie to watch during our favorite scary season. So we'd love for you to celebrate with us and watch Herd. You can pre-order it on Apple TV and, of course, do the communal thing, see it in theaters. Of course, for all of this, please see our show notes, but basically, we're going to keep it all updated at herd.film. That's herd.film, herd.film as well. Thank you again, and be sure to give us a rating and a review over on Apple Podcasts so we can continue to build this community and collaborate. IFG, how movies get made.